Winston Churchill was once asked if he could do a speech on the radio, and he said, yes, well, of course I can. And the interviewer said, well, that's fantastic. How much time do you need to prepare? And he said, well, it all depends. If you want me to speak forever, I can go immediately. If you want me to speak for a minute, I need a week to prepare. And that's what this feels like. How on earth do you get this down through 7 minutes? Well, you can't, so I'll just rush through it. I can't speak as fast as Dawn did, but I'm doing my best. I'm a gate crasher, by the way, because I'm not a real teacher. I'm a governor and a volunteer. My wife volunteered me 6 years ago. I got kind of sucked into it, and what do you know? It turns out I love this stuff. And I'm still there. I'm still teaching, that's laughingly what I call it anyway, in a tiny rural primary school in Suffolk. 75 kids, and you know what you'd expect it to be like: Victorian building, no resources, no money. And that turns out to be a fantastic luxury for someone like me, because it's a clean sheet of paper, and I was able to go in there and say, I think we should do this, and meet no resistance at all. So for the last 5 years, we've had a blast. We've gone through all sorts of convulsions, which many of you may have experienced as well, both on the hardware side, put in an ICT suite, ripped it out a year later because it didn't work as a way of delivering any kind of ICT. Gone from a few desktop machines in each classroom to the ICT suite, to a trolley of netbooks, and recently a bunch of iPads, 15 iPads that we've added in there, iPod touches, USB microphones, cameras, video cameras, a lot. And we're trying to become absolutely agnostic about it, so that kids just go and grab the device they need for the job they've got to do. Same thing goes for the operating systems. We run a mix of Windows and Linux and Mac across the school, because I want the kids not to care. The way that we can get there is that we run hardly any client software installed on those machines. Almost everything we do is cloud-based. Third kind of strand to the convulsions that we've been through is that 4 years ago we were asked to participate in a pilot scheme for the VLE that Suffolk was considering purchasing. And for 18 months we played around with something called NetMedia. It's an Australian outfit, subsequently been bought by Espresso. The Australians are really good at distance learning stuff, so you'd expect their learning platforms to be good. And it wasn't bad. I don't feel comfortable with learning platforms for reasons that I'll come on to in a minute, but it wasn't bad. I could see that we could use it. So we put in a positive recommendation, which Suffolk duly ignored. And Suffolk, for whatever reason, and I can only assume it was political or financial, they went with another platform called Unicervity. I stupidly volunteered to be the VLE Coordinator for that next couple of years. And this is what it feels like being the VLE Coordinator in a school like that with no resources. You end up doing everything. You end up being the person who says, yeah, that's all right, I can create a new blog for you to post into. I can create custom pages for you. It never made the jump from being in the hands of a small number of experts, a very small number, just me, to being something that was used in earnest by non-technical people day in, day out. And the more we used it over the course of the next 12 months, the more disgruntled I became with it, and the more it ruined my weekends as well. Now I've looked at, you can get it all 2,000 of the, it comes to the Unicervity, you can get it all 2,000 of the front pages for schools using the Unicervity platform by going to their website. And I reckon by looking at those front pages, 90% of schools go through a very similar pattern. They have a twilight session where they do their 3 hours of training with the Unicervity trainer. Some poor sod gets designated VLE Coordinator. They put up a bunch of photos that night or that weekend. 6 months later, the thing looks exactly the same, because it's just too hard to use. And actually, that's the first of my 3 objections to commercial VLE. It is just too hard. You need to be a technical person to use it. When you open the documentation for Unicervity, and I will keep saying Unicervity because that's what I'm most familiar with, but I suspect that it's similar in a lot of platforms. These are designed by 60-year-old guys with grey beards who love database. They love talking in structured query language, but they don't like user interfaces and they don't like users. And they only put a front end grudgingly because somebody told them they should. And you contrast that with the tools that we all like using, the iPad, the iPod, the Apple, anything to be honest, where the industrial design and the user interface design is fantastically good. So good that Apple shipped 14 million iPhones in the first quarter of this year, the last quarter that we've had. And presumably there are 14 million CDs or user guides. I mean, whoever reads that? I didn't. I don't know anyone else who did. Because my mum picked up the iPhone and she can use it. Now that's pretty good design if that's how it works. And that's what I want to get to in school. I want teachers who've been teaching for 20 years, 30 years, who have a terrible view of ICT, because for all that time, it's let them down. It hasn't worked. It's been an expensive waste of time that stops them teaching. I want to get past that so that the technology disappears and they can use it without even realizing they are. So, too hard. Too expensive. I'm used to, like all of us, I'm used to services on the web which are now free or freemium or very low cost. And that is the model that I prefer for our school, which has no money. I'm sick of doing loaves and fishes tricks. We've been doing that for so long, firing things from one budget to another to try and keep the balls in the air. Well, free turns out to be something we can support, and my head teacher had a fantastic experience of when the Ofsted inspector came around and asked to see the licenses, he gave him an empty folder. We don't pay any licenses for software. And the third thing that is more of a philosophical objection to the VLE is that I just can't get comfortable with anything that says, if you want to use blogs, use my blogging tool, it's great. You want a forum? Excellent, we've got one of those, it's under the My Forums heading. You want to do something here, or quizzes, wikis, whatever it might be, they've got their own inferior versions of those tools, whereas I've looked at 500 tools on the internet in order to settle on the 3 or 4 that I know my staff can get comfortable with inside the school. So, if all of that is the wrong solution, what does the right solution look like? Well, it could look any way you like, but we've chosen to build ours around Google Apps Education Edition. And it looks like this. Very icon-based, very attractive. Kids kind of want to jump on it as soon as they see it. It's under the staff, and any of those user groups or stakeholder groups, if you like, will take you into a different front end. All of this is built in the free tools provided by Google as part of the Google Apps Education domain that you get when you register. So you register a new domain, or move an existing domain across to Google, say we'd like this to be an Education Edition. It's actually a two-step process, but we want to upgrade to Education Edition. You get mail, you're all comfortable with mail, well Google do mail, documents, I'll get onto that in a second, site building, calendar, and a whole bunch of other tools, some of which are Google, some of which are third-party tools through their own Google Apps Marketplace, which all provide single sign-on and interoperability with the Google backend. So if my kids want to get into, this will be me because I'm logged in as me here, but if they want to get to their documents, they'll go into something that looks a bit like email, but that's only because I've got so many documents in here now. I haven't touched Microsoft Word for 2 years, and I would only ever go back to Word if somebody gave me a document, let's say a docx, a 2007 or 2010 format doc that was so arcane in its formatting that Google Docs couldn't handle it. That can happen. I mean, this is the world's simplest collection of tools, but it's got some really nice stuff in it. If I want to create a new document, and it's going to look like the world's simplest text editor, if we live long enough. There we go. So it's got the 2% of Microsoft Office that is actually what people use 98% of the time. I put some text in here, I can format it, all the usual stuff, but the critical thing is that top right-hand corner. This is the culture shift that moving to the cloud entails. You don't any longer save a document to your machine, to your memory stick. You share it. The document stays where it is and you give access. Now that's what we're trying to embed in our kids from the age of 4 onwards. They come in, they produce a piece of work, and they decide what the audience is for that work. So, for instance, our webpage, our public website, is produced by the kids including, for instance, including a daily newspaper where 3 kids have 2 G&T kids and 1 SEN kid this time, but it'll be different next term. They go home, they work for 5 minutes each at home. Because they've shared the document with each other, they can work from anywhere. They come in 5 minutes early and finish it off in the morning. The radio station we've got, it's an SEN boy who never wrote a thing, can't stop him now. He's there uploading MP3 files from home at night, plays it over the playground at break, including today's Philosophy for Children question. That gets the biggest audience, by the way, the big question today. So you produce work, you decide who to share it with. There are a million things that you can do with this, and I haven't got any more time to stop now, but I am only just beginning to scratch the surface. This also, by the way, I'm using it in a subversive way to get teachers used to the idea of social networking and online collaboration. They're used to mail, they're getting used to calendars, they're used to docs now, but that middle row of stuff is Twitter, it's blogs, it's things. We have a screen in the staff room, for instance, that they think is a telly. You know, it's a big flat monitor, and the left-hand side is the diary for the day or the week, and the right-hand side is a carefully selected Twitter stream. Selected so that it's usually got stuff in there, which is classroom tips and tricks and hints and practical guides that they can say, well, that's interesting, I'm going to do that. And over time, I'm getting them used to, if only Twitter didn't have such a stupid name, I'd have gotten there already. But over time, I'm getting them used to the idea that there's a whole world of people out there with the same issues, the same problems, who may need their expertise, who can be used as a resource. The kids are no problem, staff take a bit longer. Thanks a lot.